An entitled toxic Karen demands that she gets a free upgrade at Disney after she sees my family move to the front all because of my kid being in a wheelchair. But as soon as she didn't get her way, this Karen went absolutely ballistic as she spouted off some of the most racist and hateful things I've ever heard in my life, resulting in her getting kicked out of the park. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my family are at Disney. It's me, my husband, and my 2 kids ages 3 and 7, as well as my nephew who's 13, and at this point we're headed to the parade, and we are all dressed as characters from my daughter's favorite movie, Encanto. Now, my son is in a wheelchair, but we haven't had much of an issue since we've got here. But today we got to the parade a bit late and it was packed. I mean, way more than what we'd ever seen on other days. So we were kind of behind some other people. I was holding my toddler on my shoulders so that she could see, but my son was having a hard time seeing. Now, a kind family in front of us offered to let me push my son in front of them just to see if that helped in any kind of way. I thanked them a lot, and when I did, by some true Disney magic, a cast member came over and asked if we'd like to find a better view at the very front. She then escorted us to the little area and made sure we got to the front. And as a side note, we did not block anyone's view, nor did we take away any spot from anyone. Well, that's when the entitled Karen of this story pops up and she taps the cast member on the shoulder. She says, "Okay, where is my free upgrade?" Now, this poor woman tries to explain to this Karen how we didn't really get an upgrade and that there's plenty of space beside where we are. Well, this entitled Karen was not having it. She said to the cast member, "No, they were moved up, so I demand to get moved up too, and a free lightning pass." Now, at this point, her granddaughter was with her, and she looked absolutely mortified. By this time, the parade was starting, so the worker was trying to calm her down. I then told her there was plenty of room for her and the kid, and they could even get right beside us. But she then just screamed at me to shut up and keep going. A few other parade watchers tried to intervene while the worker called for backup, but this is where everything honestly went down in a way I did not expect. This entitled Karen then looks at us and says, "You stupid foreigners always taking things from Americans who actually worked for it. I paid for my tickets." And she was screaming on and on and on. By that time, she was being forced to leave while saying, "And you're in my country, so you need to speak my language. Nobody understands Spanish." Now, at this point, as she was leaving, people started to check on us. Thankfully, my daughter was preoccupied by the parade and we were all just completely fine. Now, the craziest part about all of this is that I was never speaking Spanish. I had only been speaking Swahili that day because my nephew doesn't know Spanish. And also, why do these middle-aged entitled Karens always assume any language that isn't English is somehow Spanish? This is at least the 10th time I've had someone mention Spanish when I'm actively speaking Swahili. I mean, these two languages sound nothing alike. But truly, that Karen was super obnoxious, and I'm so glad that she ended up getting kicked out. Oh man, this is so unacceptable. First of all, that Karen was straight up racist. Like, there is no other way of putting this. That is so unacceptable, it's not even funny. Who in their right mind would see a family with a kid in a wheelchair and be like, "Wow, they're getting an upgrade? That means I demand a free upgrade. If they're going up there, then I'm going as well." And then as soon as she doesn't get her way, she's gonna be like, "Wow, you need to learn how to speak English. You're always taking things away from Americans." And it's like, lady, you know that this country has more than one language, right? Seriously, the United States is not just an English-speaking country. It is a melting pot of all different kinds of cultures and upbringings. So when someone seriously acts like this in public and makes a massive scene, like, what is this Karen expecting? Did she really think she was gonna get her way by making a fool out of herself? It is so crazy to me and unbelievably cringy that anybody would treat another human being like this in public nonetheless. Like, I would expect this on the internet way before I would ever expect it in public at a Disney park. So yeah, that Karen was completely out of line, and I'm so sorry this happened to you and your family, because you guys did not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My family has been pressuring me into marriage, as they've tried to weasel their way back into my life so that they can control every aspect of it, just like they did when I lived with them. But right now, I'm honestly so torn, and at this point, I don't know what to do. So I escaped home last year, and it has been the best decision I've ever made. And yes, I really mean it when I say that I escaped. I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning, I doubted everything, because I only knew one reality. But as time has passed, I know for certain that I've made the right decisions. After a certain age in my community, you are considered expired basically, and I didn't want to play that game. I have always felt there are so many men, so why should I only have access to the ones in the community specifically? What if I never got married? I spent years waiting for something that seemingly was like never going to happen, and dating is such a scandal here. Also, my family doesn't speak to me unless it is to criticize me or talk bad about me, but personally, I believe it's a them problem. And since I left, I haven't spoken a bad word about any of them. In fact, most most of the time, I forget most of them exist. But I have definitely lived how I have wanted, and I'm proud of what I've achieved, even if they aren't and they keep on repeating it. For that, I've been labeled selfish, self-centered, conceited, and so on. Now, I've been dating someone who is not a part of my religion that has been wanting to convert, and someone in his family posted a few pictures and it's all just kind of blown up. So now my parents have reached out to me wanting to propose a few things. They said that if I really wanted to get married to him, and as a side note, we have spoken about it, and he has been wanting to convert, they said that they would marry me religiously so that at least people wouldn't talk bad about me. But if I went ahead, they would be hurt for the rest of their lives, and we wouldn't have the same relationship as before, and to not expect them to engage with him because it would likely never ever happen, and that they have their reasons not to do so. They also said that if I was to marry him, I would have to wait 3 years before getting pregnant, just in case things didn't work out, so I could divorce him amicably. But they said that if I wasn't 100% sure, because they're convinced that he is just not compatible with me, they say that marriage is not what they sold me and that it requires a lot of work, and I'm not ready to be a housewife just yet, if ever. They said that they wanted to do things right, and for me to meet a nice boy, live in their place, and get integrated into the family and family business again. They wouldn't prohibit me going out again like before and all this other garbage. But it seriously sounds like BS and just manipulation to me. And what should be excited about me getting married, they have just completely dulled it down. And at this point, I don't even want to be or get married to anyone. It always seemed like a nightmare, and these are the moments that I remember why. I am not giving up my freedom, and I'm not going to do things their way, just to go back to the hole that I worked so hard to crawl out of. It just seems that every time I engage with anyone here, I am made to feel like the villain of the story. Now, I thought I would miss my family, but I saw them a few days ago and I felt nothing. It feels like everything is just the same for them, but it definitely is not for me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it seems like your family wants you back so they can try and control your life again. And that is really not fair for you, because I completely agree with you. If you don't want to marry someone specifically in your community, and it sounds like this is some kind of religious tradition, then in my opinion, I think you should be free to do whatever you want. Because from the sounds of it, these people would probably be unhappy with anything you do. They were super controlling when you live with them, and now that you're away from them, they're like, wait a second, don't do that, we have no control over that. So honestly, I hope you're able to find some kind of distance from these people, because the way they've treated you, in my opinion, is completely unfair. My partner is demanding that I move back with him to his home country, and despite the fact that I'm 8 months pregnant, and that I told him from day one that I would not want to do that, he is still expecting me to move away from my family, as well as a place that I've lived at for over 20 years. Because if I choose to stay back, he says that he will leave me and the baby, as he feels that I wouldn't be the one that he would want to marry. So at this point, I'm honestly so distressed, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm an English 33-year-old female, but I have lived in Spain for 20 years, and my 42-year-old partner has lived here for about 10. He is Turkish, and he speaks English fluently, as he lived in England for many years before I knew him. We met here in Spain, and from the start of our relationship, we discussed a number of things, such as the future to suss out our compatibility, and we both pretty much agreed on everything. One specific question he asked me was, would I ever one day want to move to Turkey, his home country? Now, my answer was no, based on a number of reasons. For starters, my mom and dad live here, and I have over 20 years worth of friendships here. I don't speak a word of Turkish, so I feel like I'd be totally dependent on him to get by. I also wouldn't know a soul there. And even though I'd meet his family, not one of them speaks any English. Well, when I told him this, he understood and he didn't get offended or upset by it. We had had multiple different conversations about the future, some of which were about if we would ever get a house together here in Spain. Well, fast forward, and we've been together for just over 4 years now, and I'm now 8 months pregnant with our first child. Tonight, he struck up the conversation again about moving to Turkey in the future, and I said to him, I thought we already spoke about this, and that I'm happy here, and I don't really want to move to Turkey. It was at this moment that he then called me selfish, and said that I'm not thinking about him or our unborn daughter, and how moving there would benefit all of us. I was more than just a tad shocked, and honestly quite pissed off. So I reminded him that I wouldn't benefit from giving up my whole life to start fresh in a country that I couldn't speak the language of, not to mention losing everyone that I've ever known. After an hour of him defending his wish to move there, and me defending my reasons why I didn't want to, he eventually said, well, I'll go there without you then, and if you can't follow your man, then you're obviously not the one. Mind you, I'm 8 months pregnant with his baby. I've asked him how he can be so selfish and manipulative like this, and how can he throw me and our baby down the drain like this? His response was to say, I'm not saying I want to move there tomorrow. I'd like to know though if I wanted to move there in the future. My woman would have to have my back and follow my leadership. I reminded him that I expressed my feelings on moving countries since day one and explained to him that his desire to move to his home country would have been fine if he had been more clear from the beginning about his future plans if we realized sooner that we weren't compatible, because maybe then we wouldn't have tried for this baby. But it seems he tried to trap me and manipulate me to doing what he wants, because if I don't, he will abandon me and our child. So seriously, what's the general opinion on this? I feel like his response and the way he's treating me and my decision just further justifies my not wanting to move countries and have to be totally dependent on him. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I think you hit the nail on the head. This guy's trying to trap you in Turkey and be like, oh yeah, now you're gonna have to depend on me. You're miles away from your family and you've got nobody else. And it's like, first of all, I don't like the way he's talking about you. He's trying to be like, well, my woman has to follow my leadership. And it's like, wait a second, I think you meant to say wife. Calling the original poster your woman sounds super disrespectful. Like, what is going on right now? This lady is not your property, she's your partner in life. And the way he's talking really does seem like he tried to trap you in having a baby and then tried to force you to move back to his country. Like, imagine that, spending 4 years to get to know someone, you both agree to start having a family, and then he's like, well, if you don't follow me, then obviously you're not the one. And it's like, wait a second, I thought we already went over this. So yes, I think your instincts are spot on. It really seems like your partner is trying to trap you in Turkey, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be super hesitant in moving forward with any of those plans. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for being hospitalized during my sister's first day of senior year? Because right now, my dad is saying I stole her thunder by having a flare-up that resulted in me going to the hospital. And now, after seeing my sister refusing to talk to me, as well as yelling at me any chance that she gets, I'm honestly so confused and I now don't know what to do. I'm a 21-year-old female and I am chronically ill. For the majority of my life, I would need to be hospitalized due to various health complications. This would then leave my 18-year-old sister all alone. Before I developed my chronic illness, I would be the one to raise my sister since our mother was very neglectful. By the time our dad took us in for custody, I had began to develop symptoms and eventually diagnosed with my illness, which has left me disabled. Well, one day around August, my dad had told me how much my sister was looking forward to her first day of school since she will become a senior. Now, I was excited for her, and I would listen to her talk about all the things that she was excited for. My dad had told me during this time to try and control my flare-ups so that I don't steal her thunder. Now, this is a very common thing that I'm told, as my past flare-ups have caused scheduling issues. I had already experienced mild flare-ups for a couple of days leading up to this, and on the night of my sister's first day, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning with excruciating pain. The pain I had was much worse than my past flare-ups, and I was eventually taken to the hospital as my medicine just didn't help at all. I was in the hospital from 5 o'clock in the morning until around noon, passing out from the pain multiple times. And I was surprised that my dad stayed by my side during this, as I figured that he wouldn't, since I had told him to take my sister to school and tell her that I said good luck before passing out. When I did finally maintain consciousness and stop screaming from the pain, my dad began to scold me while I was still in the hospital bed. I then teared up as I felt guilty about this and told him to go see my sister. Eventually, I was discharged and I was prescribed new medications because of how bad it was. When I got home, my sister was there and she began yelling at me for ruining her first day. I tried apologizing, but she ended up slamming the door to her room and refuses to talk to me. And to this day, she still refuses to talk to me and will yell and scream about me and how I always take the attention away. I'm honestly confused because my dad tells me she has every right to be angry with me and that this is my fault. However, my friends tell me it's not because I insisted that my dad take my sister to school and that I can't control it. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm honestly so confused. Okay, your dad is super weird. The fact that he's trying to blame you for having a flare-up and needing to go to the hospital all because of a flare-up, that in my opinion is crazy. There's no good excuse for that. You're not trying to steal anybody's thunder. You're literally trying to live a normal life. The fact that he would try to act like that is honestly so weird to me. So no, of course you're not the jerk. It sounds like you can't really control any of the flare-ups and any of the pain you're going through, and the fact that he would imply that you're somehow like making this happen just to ruin your little sister's big day of senior year, in my opinion, is unbelievably toxic. My entitled neighbor is constantly parking his construction truck right outside my house, as he is literally disturbing his entire neighborhood while also being very dismissive of anybody's complaints. And at this point, I'm seriously frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live in a quiet street in New York. There's no sidewalks, but there are a lot of trees. Neighbors are nice enough, but with the house set back into the trees, most neighbors just wave hello with not much interaction. Now, just about the only neighbor we talk to is an older lady who owns the house directly across the street from us. She used to be good friends with the previous owners of our house, and when we moved in, a nice atmosphere between us was set up. The lady lives in the house with one of her 2 children. She also usually has a tenant. The lady doesn't have much to offer, so the tenant is often a bit shady. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do to get by in life. And she keeps them in line, so we have no complaints. Her last tenant was sent away because they couldn't afford to rent anymore. And around the same time, the older lady started to take her winters with a family member in Florida. Since then, the lady's son moved into the house, taking the tenant's spot. And I had not talked to him much except the time that the lady introduced us. Now, the guy is kind of a jerk, but not too bad. His whole spiel is to name drop all the people who used to live in the area. It's kind of like making it clear that this is his neighborhood. Now, most of those people are gone, and as I said earlier, most people keep to themselves around here anyways. Well, the problem is that since moving in, the guy has been parking his construction truck and sometimes a trailer on the road. Now, to be clear, I'm talking about the type of truck and trailer that moves excavators, bulldozers, and a large amount of dirt around, not some kind of landscaper's pickup. He doesn't park every day, maybe like 4 nights a month, but the truck takes up a complete lane of the road, and because the trees are low light, you sometimes can't see it at night until you're on top of it. He has been doing this for months now, and about 2 weeks ago, he must have forgotten to take the trailer's brake off when he left early in the morning. He shook most of the houses as he pulled away and left tire marks on the street for almost 2 blocks. Well, some of us neighbors got to talking one-on-one as part of our normal waves hello, and my wife volunteered me to talk to the guy. Well, I really just didn't want to, so I just dismissed it. Well, 2 days ago, I come home from work to find the truck parked right outside my driveway. Only this time, he has cones out boxing the truck, and the spot he parked at made it difficult for me to pull into my driveway, but this was more than enough to give me the push to go talk to him. So I ring his doorbell, he comes out, and I reintroduce myself. I tell him my name, and then I say I live across the street. I then ask him that I'm wondering what's up with the truck. He asks which house I live in by asking, "Oh, you live in the Smith's old house, right?" Even though he got that wrong. The Smiths lived in the house next door. Then he tells me the truck broke down and that's why it's there. And yes, you heard that right. His truck broke down right in front of my house. He then asked me if I called the town on him because he recently received a ticket for parking the truck overnight. I told him that I didn't call, but after the last time he pulled away, I'm not surprised that someone did. So again, I asked him what his deal was for parking the truck on the street and that it's wrong for him to do so, that he's been doing it for a while and no one has said anything until now, and that he should find a different solution for his parking dilemma. Well, after I said that, he just brushed me off and said, "Okay, you said your piece," and then he closed the door in my face. So seriously, what should I do next? Should I call the town the next time the truck is parked? Because honestly, right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, if someone was that dismissive towards me, after I tried to be reasonable and be like, "Hey, you might want to find some other place to park," I would very quickly give that guy the cold shoulder, call it in and report him, and then never look back. Because that guy's got a weird attitude. He clearly thinks that he owns this neighborhood for some stupid reason, and that he can park his stupid truck wherever he wants. And it's like, dude, you can't do that. Especially not right in front of my house. Like, I can understand someone parking a car there, but from the sounds of it, this is something that is not residential. This is not some like minivan or an SUV where it might be big, but it's not bothering anybody. Because it sounds like this is something that's massive that takes up a lot of space, and it's something that literally should not be in a neighborhood. So hopefully this guy cleans up his act, because the way he's acting is honestly super obnoxious. My entitled manager decides to micromanage every aspect of our office supplies, by even going as far as putting a lock on our supply closet door, forcing us to contact her directly if we needed anything. So me and my coworkers decided to band together and maliciously comply, as we literally overwhelmed her in a way that she honestly didn't expect. Here's what happened. So I used to work at a mid-sized company where our department had its own supply closet. Everyone knew the rules. Take what you need and don't hoard it, and try to keep the area tidy. Now this might sound simple enough, right? Well, apparently that wasn't the case for the new micromanaging office manager, who we will call Karen. Karen was obsessed with cutting costs. She would swoop in like a hawk every morning inspecting the supply closet. If a box of pens was a little lighter or the post-it notes weren't perfectly aligned, we would get a stern email about unnecessary consumption. She even implemented a sign-out sheet for supplies, meaning that if you wanted a highlighter, then you better justify it in writing. Well, one day Karen decided to escalate. She put a lock on the supply closet and declared herself the sole key holder. If anyone needed something, they had to email her and wait for her to approve the request. And this was, of course, on top of her other duties, so getting a new pen would take hours. Now, needless to say, productivity started to suffer, but it's about right here that our malicious compliance came into play. A coworker of mine, who we will call Tom, was a bit of a prankster, but always stayed within the rules. He decided to test Karen's new system to its limits. Every time he needed anything, no matter how small small it might be, he emailed this Karen. Did he need a single paperclip or to replace a dried out marker, or even if the stapler got jammed? Well, then he sent an email every single time. And because of this, Tom's meticulousness inspired the rest of us. Soon the entire department was flooding Karen's inbox with individual requests. Since Karen insisted on handling every single one personally, she quickly became overwhelmed. Approving requests started taking days instead of hours. Meetings were delayed because people didn't have notebooks. Presentations stalled because someone was waiting for a dry erase marker. Management started noticing the bottleneck, mostly because our department's performance metrics were plummeting, and everyone pointed the finger at the supply chain fiasco. Now, Karen tried to defend her system, claiming that we were being wasteful and needed structure, but the evidence was clear. Her micromanagement was backfiring. Now, after a specifically disastrous week, upper management finally stepped in. They not only revoked Karen's authority over the supply closet, but they also gave her a formal reprimand. The lock was then removed and the sign-out sheet disappeared, and we went back to the honor system. Now, after that, this Karen was humiliated and tried to keep a low profile after that. Now, as for all of us, we may have lost a week of productivity, but the petty satisfaction of watching Karen drown in her own bureaucracy was honestly worth every single second. Yes, I love it when micromanaging jerks get exactly what they deserve, because the Karen in this story really thought it was necessary to put a lock on the supply closet door. Think about that for a second. That is so crazy. Like, unless someone's straight up stealing all of the office supplies in some kind of way, then this Karen's reaction was just completely over the top. So seriously, good for you and your coworkers for putting her in her place, because her behavior sounded incredibly obnoxious. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.